After I was killed, my son, who clearly despised me, risked his life to avenge me. The husband, who used to spend every day partying and chasing women, worked tirelessly to destroy the company of my murderer. He took my ashes and walked into the ocean to die with me. As my soul drifted in the air, I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. When I opened my eyes again, I had gone back in time. I was standing there truly scolding my son for only coming second in his class, while smashing my husband's Patek Philippe watch into pieces. I thought, was I always this horrible? Maybe it's time for a personality makeover. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to my old destructive ways at the Reynolds mansion. I held my phone to my ear, listening to Michael's laid-back voice on the other end. Need money or something else? I pressed my lips together. I broke your watch. Michael responded with a nonchalant, "Oh, all right, I'll hang up now." Before you could end the call, I quickly asked, "Where are you?" There was a pause on the other end. A few moments later, all the noise from the bar faded away, until it was so quiet I could hear a pin drop. "Why? You want a divorce?" His previously lazy tone had turned cold. "And where would you go? Back to the Miller family. Think they'd treat you any better? You fought with Ethan again. You'd better not forget your little studio still runs on my investment. Sweetheart, shut your mouth." I'll pretend this conversation never happened. I was stunned as I listened to him rattle off that long string of remarks. How on earth had he jumped from me asking where he was to assuming I wanted a divorce? But that's Michael for you. Beneath all his charm is a distant coldness. He could say the sweetest things with his playful eyes, while feeling absolutely nothing. Or he could easily walk away from past lovers. A man who lives for the game, breathing through life without leaving a trace. And I wasn't exactly known for being mild-tempered. People in our circles would describe me as a brash, unstoppable hurricane. Especially after I got sick. I was impossible to deal with, which is probably why I caused so much chaos in the Reynolds family in my last life. The only reason I was being nice now was because I was deeply moved by how they acted after my death. Figured I'd give them another chance this time around and be a little kinder. Turns out neither of them appreciated it. Fine, let's get divorced. Take your son and get out. I let out a cold laugh, deliberately saying the opposite of what I meant. Just as the words left my mouth, I caught sight of Ethan walking downstairs, a book in his hand. His dark eyes were unreadable. He looked half like his father, and half like me, but his personality was entirely his own. I wanted to see how they would react to me saying I wanted a divorce. 3? You want a divorce? Ethan stood not far from me, his tone calm. He had a maturity that didn't match his age, but without parents who care, it's easy for kids to grow up too fast. I watched his expression closely and raised an eyebrow slightly. Your dad doesn't love me, and you and our relationship doesn't even compare to what you have with your tutor. Why should I stay in this family? No. His expression didn't change much, but there was a brief hesitation in his words. After a long pause, Ethan spoke softly. Dad won't agree to it. Well, that's not up to him, I replied. There was a brief silence in the room. You want a divorce because I didn't let you come to the parent-teacher conference? Ethan suddenly asked. I was caught off guard. Father and son really do think alike, don't they? Ethan lowered his eyes as if making a tough decision. If you want to come, then come. What? Suddenly it all made sense why he had reacted this way. He must have thought I'd embarrass him at the parent-teacher conference, so he didn't want me there. But more than that, he didn't want me to divorce Michael. My heart ached. I just want to know how your studies are going. After a long silence, my voice softened as I took a small step towards Ethan. His lips parted as if he wanted to say something, but just then the front door opened. Ethan and I both turned to see Michael standing in the doorway, silhouetted by the light outside. As he walked in, the marks of a kiss on his neck became visible, and the atmosphere in the house grew tense. Ethan stared at his father's neck for several seconds, then without saying a word, walked past him and out the door. I instructed James to have someone follow him. The butler smiled and said, It's time for Master Ethan's tutoring. The driver is already waiting outside. I paused, then nodded, letting my worries ease for a moment. Michael's gaze met mine, and with a casual flick of his finger, everyone else in the house left the room. So where did you get the nerve to talk about divorce? Michael loosened his collar, his tone light, as though he were asking a simple question. I couldn't help but fix my eyes on him. It wasn't just curiosity. It was puzzling. How could a man who lived life so recklessly have acted the way he did after I died? Michael lazily reclined on the sofa, arms crossed, studying me with the same flipping attitude. Baby, don't forget. Tomorrow night's the gala. Tomorrow's event would be attended by all of Newport's elite families, including my own. My family is strange. They want me to hold on to Michael and keep my place in the Reynolds family. But they also don't want me to be happy. You've got plenty of side pieces. Don't waste your breath calling me baby. I chuckled and sat down next to him, letting the comment hang in the air. My words were a casual test. During the time I spent as a wandering soul, I saw many things I hadn't known before. For instance, all those women around Michael might not have been what they seemed. The truth? That was something I'd have to uncover on my own. For a moment, his expression wavered. He glanced at me, the playful smile fading from his lips. "You're jealous?" he asked, half mocking, half bitter. Tapping his fingers rhythmically on his leg, I took the opportunity to rest my hand on his thigh. Michael froze, his whole body going rigid. Michael was confused. "Darling," I teased, curling my lips. Sure, wildflowers might smell sweeter, but Michael practically bolted upright as a fling. He took a deep breath, eyes narrowed at me. "Faye, have you lost your mind?" His ears turned red. But really, a man as experienced as him wouldn't blush so easily. I grinned, launching into a string of teasing remarks without missing a beat. Our kid's practically grown. "What's wrong with me touching you? Are you too high and mighty to be touched? We're still married, aren't we? Is it illegal for a wife to touch her own husband?" There was a lot of bite in my tone. In my previous life, I always spoke to him like this. Only this time, the sharpness was mixed with a little bit of flirtation. Chastity is the best diary a man can have. In my last life, I was convinced Michael was sleeping around, which disgusted me to no end. Naturally, I couldn't stand being near him, but now I realized I might have misjudged the situation, and so my attitude could shift. Michael repeated, "You've lost your mind." By now, his neck had flushed pink too. Just as I was expecting him to storm off in anger, the butler came rushing over, phone in hand. "Mr. Reynolds, Mrs. Reynolds, there's been an incident with Master Ethan." My brow furrowed. I exchanged a glance with Michael, and we both hurried to the school. In the car, Michael was on the phone with his secretary. "Do we know what happened?" I stared out the window as the scenery blurred by, listening to his lazy, detached tone on the other side of the car. "He hit someone. Just because I donated a few buildings, he thinks he can act up. Geez, wonder where he gets that from." I grimaced. He may as well have pointed that comment directly at me. But Ethan was too mature and composed, almost disturbingly so for an 8-year-old. I bit back the urge to snap at Michael, holding it in. I couldn't figure out what would make Ethan act out like that for the mother of the boy Ethan hit, grabbed him then our eyes met. In the next instant, I strode forward and slapped her across the face twice, just as hard.